Winds are at 115 miles per hour. Forecast models, remember, each one of these lines is a different forecast model. And what we're doing is we're asking that model where the potential center of Lee could be going. So again, think of the center of circulation coming up with this line here, the center of circulation with that line. It's not focusing on the strength of the storm. It's all about where the center could be setting up. Now, when we look at the cone of uncertainty, this is also focusing on where that center of circulation could be, falling within this yellow shading area. And notice that the Cape of Massachusetts and a good portion of the southern shores of Maine included for potential landfall. But landfall can sometimes take away from other areas getting impacts. You might say, well, that area is getting the landfall. They're going to get all the impacts. My area is going to be fine. That's not going to be the case, because think about this. This is a Category 1 storm right about here. So we're going to get strong winds coming from the east and the northeast into eastern Massachusetts, into the shores of New Hampshire, maybe even down towards areas of Long Island and into Rhode Island. We'll see those shores potentially getting maybe some water inundation or some water that's going to get forced against that shore. So there's also going to be coastal erosion impacts for many areas along the coast. So what we know is that it's going to be a strong tropical storm or on the lower end of a Category 1 storm as it's getting up the really kind of in between Bermuda and the Atlantic coast, and then eventually heading right towards the shores of Maine. Windy, wet weather for New England. I should say the Northeast or New England, however you want to describe it, is going to be dealing with that windy and wet weather. So the thing about this is that Rob was just showing you parts of the Northeast are already very, very flooded. So that's what we're going to continue to see are the flooding conditions picking back up with additional rain from Lee. So the rain that we're getting in those areas today, it's not good news for what Lee could bring. Now, a key here with the forecast of Lee is just how close it gets to the Atlantic coast of the United States. Now, there have been some indications. Forecast models are trying to trend a little bit more to the west, so that would mean closer to the Atlantic coast. This is one forecast model, the GFS, so just think of that area right there as the center of circulation, and this is all the convection and the thunderstorm activity. But we've also got the wind profile here, so you see that wind direction is going to be coming from the east into eastern Massachusetts, possibly by Friday afternoon. Factor that in with high tide, we definitely could get that water inundation, and then more of the rain, the wind, and also that strong potential storm surge, especially with that straight south to north flow. We're likely going to see a lot of water inundation on the far eastern side of the coast of Maine, just based on that forecast, which again could change. Now, conditions could be very similar to a nor'easter. We've talked about those storm systems in the northeast, except this one's going to be mostly in the form of rain. Right? We're not talking about any snow with this particular tropical system.